I'm not saying do free
Yes.
labor. I'm just
we
saying.
will get to this.
This is the conversation I want to have with you, Tara.
Oh, yes.
This is the conversation I
I'm
want to
not
have
saying
with
do free
you.
labor. I'm just saying, how do you get extra eyes on different skill sets you're not always able to demonstrate in the job that you have in a way that does not burn you out?
No more excuses. No more branding band-aids. The art of positioning. Let's freaking go.
When your team shares different messages about what the business does and how it does it, or you want to get your team more involved in promoting the business, this episode is for you. To make it that much more relevant, we're adding internal comms and team culture experts in the mix to keep things applicable today. One of our guests is Tara Turk-Haynes, who went from executive assistant to VP of Talent Acquisition and DEI, all while being published playwright on the side. So which came first, the corporate chaos or the playwright side? Do they interlink?
The playwriting side came first because you can't make money as a playwright. So you obviously have to get a job to support yourself as an artist. And that is exactly what I did. And that turned into a career. And yes, they actually do intersect. I have a microfiction series now about workplaces. So finally, my worlds are colliding so we can tell better stories and make workplaces better and give some insight.
So in the second hot seat, we've got Cassandra Babilia, who looked at her CI retirement calculator and said, absolutely not, and pivoted to become a decade-strong internal comms leader. From keeping national secrets to spilling corporate tea, did you at least get to keep the shades?
Ooh, let's see. What did I keep? I kept nothing, but what? But I do have these adorable little CIA onesies and little bomber jackets that my kids wore when they were tiny.
Yeah, wait, were they mini-sized? Like mini?
Yeah, made for little babies. They're
Starting
baby
them
clothes.
young. God.
You gotta get them drinking the Kool-Aid before they know how to speak.
All right. So,
Speak spell.
big hitter here, right into the topic. What do you guys think about the difference between genuine employee advocacy and just asking your team to post about the business?
Yeah, so when I think about the difference between giving your team the trust and the rope and the runway to try things and share what they really think about the company and the product and the culture, and then the flip side of that being the Uber managed, micromanaged. This is the content we want you to post. Don't do anything. Don't touch it. Just copy paste. I mean, it's the results. The first group, they take some big swings and they may make big hits, and it brands because people trust people. Mm-hmm. People trust people to tell real stories. People trust people to share what they really think about a product or a company or a culture. Or on the other hand, people don't listen to corporate posts. So if it sounds corporate, they're not going to listen to you either. So from like a brand organizational perspective, it makes sense to give people the space to be creative and share what they really think without turning them into corporate robots.
100% agree. I think one of the things that's very interesting is a lot of times people just don't know what to post, right? And so there's a difference between giving people guidelines on how to articulate their experience within the workplace and micromanaging that whole experience. And I think sometimes the people who are in charge definitely have trouble distinguishing the two. And they also don't believe that audiences can tell the authenticity, the difference between the two. So, there's a way to give guidelines and say, this is how you talk about your experience versus this is the experience I want you to talk about. It's possible. I just don't think it's an emphasis that ever happens in corporations. It's not something that's always thought about.
In regular content, the disconnect between how the target audience are reading it. So even internally, there's that disconnect of like, hey, let's keep this human. Like, let's not get an AI in there to like fill in that human voice. So
Yeah, it's like they can obviously tell that ChatG wrote this.
facts.
Yeah.
Facts. Like, even if we want to say like, oh, well, I've edited it, there's going to be science. It's always going to be science. So
Yeah. Yeah.
what company practices would you say need to be fixed before we even get started in this area? Because I know a lot of the time that this is probably even a surface level thing.
I think it's about focusing on what's your why. Like, why are you talking about what do you want, why do you want people to know about your company from an employee perspective? Are you articulating, there's a layer of originality from our culture perspective. We definitely we value our employees' voices. And I think that goes back to your mission and your core values, right? So I think it's always like, you got to really start with mission, core values. Why do we want to talk about this? What do we want to talk about? In what context do we want to have this talked about? I think a lot of times we have this aversion to being very regimented about a plan when we're talking about people talking about their experiences. I want it to be organic. I just want them to free flow. And you're like, no, you don't, because people will flounder and you will not be on the same page. So if you're also telling your employees and your teams, like, we think we have a great culture here. We think our XYZ program is so awesome, and we want the voices of our internal employees to talk about this in an authentic way so everybody knows about it, because we just think this one thing that we do is amazing and nobody else is doing it, and it will draw attention. Take people along the journey internally, but I just feel like sometimes that internal comms plan is just like not there. And I know, Cassandra will probably agree with me, but sometimes people don't even think that they need an internal comms plan because they think, it's like talent acquisition or HR. How hard could it be? You just
It
go
just
ahead and
happens.
talk about it. It just happens, right? And I think that is probably the biggest barrier, is just like this undervaluing of what this work really looks like.
Yeah, honestly, Tara, you just said something. The deciding what you're trying to accomplish with this. So there are different types of employee ambassadors, right? You've got employer brand ambassadors that are trying to showcase the culture of a company, of its EVP, trying to attract talent. You've also got product ambassadors, people who are employees who are product users and product evangelists. And there's also thinking about your executive team as thought leaders and establishing not only themselves but also the company in extension as leaders in a space. And what are you trying to do with each of those groups? I think that's important to understand that every employee persona can't fit every box, and so you gotta target the right people to get the right job done, right?
I think there's that balance between what you're both saying, Tara, like having that clear mission and values, but clear in the sense of people can translate that into what that means for them and still have it reflect the business. Because if we start having, say, for example, the product team has like one perception and the marketing team has another perception, the other, like, then there's going to be that mixed message, and that's going to reflect, even if we're getting employees in being like, hey, we were talking about the brand, but then they go into the store and it's a different experience. So getting everyone on board in the same room, like, it was just discussed in the last episode, where it's like, we all know bare bones what we stand for and what we're trying to go towards.
I feel like that's the baseline for just a company, period.
Right.
You have to you have to know
right
what you stand for and how do you want people to feel when they interact with you and your stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've all had experiences that
Lots of
that is
places.
actually not the case.
Well, I just
Oh,
think,
yeah.
again, it goes back to that assumption that this is really easy and it's organic and we don't need a plan. We don't need to, one, define, use shared definitions, which is my biggest thing, especially as a DEI practitioner. We keep using words and assuming everybody knows. So if we're saying, like, I really want you to do, we're encouraging all of our employees to, document your onboarding experience. What is that like? Did I tell you, like, what do I mean by experience? Did I tell you what I mean by documented? Did I tell you, like, what's our goal here and how do we translate that, again, like you were talking about, so that it's easy for people to understand? And one thing I will say that, and back up a little bit, going back to Cassandra's point, when we have those different groups as well, how are you even identifying those groups, right? Because that's an HR people leader, department leader. Are you paying attention to the people in your organization so that you know what they excel at talking about as well? It takes a real intimate knowledge of your team to be able to say that, oh, I think Beatrice is going to be great talking about this one thing. I've heard her speak in our team meetings, and, this is, she gets very detailed, but also impassioned. Like, you have to know the people that are around you in order to select those groups. And I am not sure that's something we are all paying attention to when we're doing, like, our stand-ups. You know what I mean? Like, are we even paying attention to those people in that
Yeah, it's
way?
like, how are we providing avenues for employees to raise their hands, to opt in?
Yeah.
Because maybe they want to build that skill, or maybe they want to opt in because that's a passion of theirs already on the outside. So then how are we enabling everyone, bringing everyone up to the same base understanding of the organization's mission, values, core beliefs, the brand look and feel, so that they understand it at a baseline, so that they can customize it for their own social channels, so it still sounds authentic.
So what
to
you're
them.
saying is going beyond the job descriptions to what certain team members are interested in. Maybe there's someone in, say, engineering or development who's super interested in one particular aspect that maybe they're not specifically working on, but, like, they're keen to talk about that.
Yeah, I think that's what professional development is, right? When we start talking about professional development, I feel like one of the undervalued aspects is paying attention to what people are interested in, but may not specifically have their job is their job title or in their job description. A lot of times, HR people will complain, like, oh my gosh, everyone thinks professional development means you're automatically going to get raised. But no, it's also opportunity. It's an expansion. It's a going outside of what you're doing to get noticed in a specific way, and then telling them, like, hey, if you become a thought leader as an engineer, and we're talking about our product, look at the other opportunities and other avenues that might, get you. And you then become someone who has extra value within the organization as well. I'm not saying do free labor. I'm just saying.
We will get to this.
This is the conversation I want to have with you, Tara.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
This is the conversation I want to have with you.
Free labor. I'm just saying, how do you get extra eyes on different skill sets you're not always able to demonstrate in the job that you have in a way that does not burn you out?
Yeah. And yes. Okay. So let's save the equitable pay talk for a little bit later. But I pulled, and so Beatrice, when you reached out to me about this topic, the first thing that came to my mind was a woman named Miriam Webb, who was a Chick-fil-A employee in St. Louis last year, who gained 3 million TikTok dollars just posting her meal hacks for Chick-fil-A and reviewing her meals. And, like, in a very positive manner. She was not talking about her Chick-fil-A food negatively. Like, it was attracting really great momentum and positive attention for the brand. And of course, they did not recognize that she had tapped into something. She had tapped into something potentially really good for the brand, but because she wasn't exactly what they had in mind, she wasn't as polished, I'm using air quotes very liberally there, as they would have liked. She wasn't trained as a corporate spokesperson. They told her she had to stop posting. And, like, what a loss, because she left and then got a big deal with Shake Shack to do exactly what she was doing for Chick-fil-A for free. They dropped the bag. Dropped the bag. So from a professional development perspective, you have to understand and look at when you see potential, you have to recognize it for the potential that it is without having a knee-jerk reaction that says, "Ooh, they didn't go through the proper channels. Like maybe this is a time to cultivate this."
So on that note, how should businesses get employees excited about promoting, getting them to, her stage? I mean, in whatever zone that they are in the company, without making it feel mandatory.
If employees don't feel like they can say something without being exactly perfect, and they'll be reprimanded for saying something wrong, they're never gonna post on your behalf. Also, like if they hate your company and they're secretly just there because they can't find anything else, you're probably not going to get any enthusiasm out of them as brand reps. But yeah, I think it starts with creating a place where folks feel like they are safe to say what they think without repercussions.
Yeah, and I think it starts before this program, right? It starts when you're onboarding them. You're asking them, "How was your experience?" And if you have a culture of asking, being curious, and asking questions, then you can already set yourself up for having programs like this. And then, I'm a stickler for this, but document what this program really kind of looks like, right? I think some of my clients are smaller businesses, and as soon as I say start documenting things, they literally think I'm becoming like the red tape corporate evil empire. And I'm like, listen, you're not always going to be there as a leader. So if you want to maintain or even grow the culture that you have, you can't be the holder of what that culture is. It has to live somewhere beyond you. And there's nothing wrong with documenting what that looks like. It's not set in stone. You can always evolve it. But if you're saying like, we have a culture of curiosity. We've been asking you since you onboarded, how's your experience? How's the environment? What do you think could be better? And then you say, and we're developing a brand evangelist program because we want to talk about, externally how we are developing this voice of ours within the company for this cultural voice. Would you want to be a part of that? You're morphing into what they're already used to doing. And then at that point, you're saying like, and then here is what you get out of this, because again,
we're talking about that now.
Talk about that later, but
we're talking about
Let's do
beyond the salary.
Right. You can't always assume that just because the company is benefiting, the employee is benefiting. They need to have some kind of incentive to be able to continue to do that, or you turn into a Merriam-Webb who's going someplace entirely different. But like, what does that look like? There are some companies who have those protocols where they say like, if you contribute something that is business changing, right? Like an idea, whatever, then you have a potential for a bonus structure, right? Where you're saying like, this really moved the needle from a business standpoint. We saw, I don't know, Cassandra did this TikTok video and it literally changed our followers from this number to this number. That's huge for us. And so we're going to give you a spot bonus because that was really changing the business. And we can see the ROI of this. People should not be, businesses should not be afraid to incentivize people who come up with great ideas that make the company better. It's not just because you're like, we're not in college where we're getting extra credit. Like, it just doesn't work that way, right?
There's no extra credit.
Yeah, my landlord doesn't care about extra credit. My landlord would like to know I'm going to pay my bills on time. And so what better way to be like, wow, I really contributed to the business. I got a little extra cash in my pocket. And, I can see how my talents really contributed to the end result of our quarterly numbers or whatever you're looking at. But measurables are really important too.
If you're not having an immediately measurable impact, you still deserve recognition. And I think companies need to lean into like being vocal about celebrating the people who then become the face, you become an unofficial spokesperson. Celebrate those people. I also think that a lot of times performance reviews come around and managers are afraid to put these other things as assigned into performance reviews and taking them into account. You have someone who leads an ERG or is a brand ambassador or who leads the annual volunteer program. That should come into account when you're doing their annual review about the impact they've had internally on their fellow employees and even potentially externally. Like, that stuff counts. It's not extra credit. Take it into account when you're doing performance evaluations.
So including their efforts in performance evaluations, giving them a shout out, be it like on social media, maybe even within the company, like the old school, like employee of the employee of the year. I don't know if we're still doing this, but so like aside from salary, what are other ideas and these that businesses can take and implement today to give that recognition?
I mean, recognition is a hotbed for, I think, HR people all the time, right? Like every HR person is trying to get recognition right. And it's not one size fits all. You really have to understand exactly what your company culture is like. One of the questions, since I've ran TA for so long, one of the questions I ask every interview candidate is, how do you like to be recognized? And then that gets documented, right? So when I talk to a hiring manager and I'm advocating for, a really great candidate for a role, I go, and this is how they like to be, recognized. So if you hire that person as a hiring manager, I've already set you up to recognize that person the way that they need to be recognized. A lot of people don't need an external shout out on the Slack channels. Like that's not what they want. They actually, some of them would love to just hear directly from their supervisor, you did a really good job on that project. You would be surprised how many direct managers do not say that. They immediately go to the larger company Slack channel and sometimes embarrass the employee who didn't actually want to be, recognized in that way. But you've got to ask the questions. You can't just do a one size fits all. And you can't do what you think you would want as well, which I think some managers do.
Going back to it all starts in the onboarding. It all starts with the basics. How do we ask the questions? It's not the golden rule, it's the platinum rule. Treat others how they want to be treated. But also, fuck you, pay me, because other duties set aside.
Right. Don't overload people. I mean, because adversely to your Merriam-Webster story, there is the viral story about that single mom who worked at Burger King, who worked 2 whole shifts by herself at Burger King and documented it on TikTok. And the end result was that they fired her. People called out, she held the store down, and now she has no job. So instead of, you know what I mean? So how does that ever incentivize anyone at Burger King to be like, I love this place? Going back to Cassandra's point, there's no psychological safety here. I've given everything to you, and I worked 2 shifts despite my children, and I still got fired because I talked about, the extraordinary, instead of being like, this is an extraordinary employee who literally just was able to save the store, right? Like, and did everything that they could. Your end result is then to let that person go. And I think they don't understand the story, the external story that happens when things like that occur. Like, we are paying attention to those things.
Like, there was an opportunity to turn that story into a good news story and to turn it into, holy cow, we see that y'all are understaffed, under-resourced. We're going to step in. We're going to get you the support you need, and we're going to get you a bonus and maybe a day off or 2. Like, really, they dropped the bag again.
I remember when I was working with Accor and Novotel, and they had this program where every time you would sign someone up to their loyalty program, you would get a certain number of points. And after you get X number of points, you get like free night stay, or you get other kinds of rewards that, you would actually enjoy. You get to go on a holiday or stuff like that. And I saw the results of that, even for myself, where I'm just like, bring it into regular conversations with customers, like as we're checking in. And if you can measure that, the way that, say, for example, your employees are talking about your business, be it, okay, if you reach X number of people, or if they quote your name, so that's a great measurable. If they quote your name when they're purchasing one of our services, then you get X. And that's like a good way, without being in case you don't want your face to be all over the internal comms or that sort of thing. you're getting something that you actually enjoy. And probably, poll your team, be like, hey, look, we're thinking about doing this program. What kind of rewards would you guys actually enjoy? Obviously, you don't have to do everything. Like, hey, send me to Paris or something like that.
Yeah.
But have it stacked.
I will say that I think that's a geographical thing, because what happens is, and I think historically sales teams, anytime you've been a customer service rep or a sales team, they've always had incentives like that, because in the US specifically, your salary is going to be low. So the incentives that you get will be a certain, not like a fee, like it's supposed to be in addition to a perk, because you're getting like an hourly wage. In other countries, I think it's a little bit different. But here, that's always built into customer service as well as sales. And I think what we're talking about is also like going beyond that. Like we're talking about your accounting coordinator, your accounts payable clerk. We're talking about the people who normally are not in a position to get incentivized in a way to talk about the business, because then that also becomes a little bit more authentic, because, why would your AP clerk really care to talk about your product business culture unless they really either enjoy it or somebody's harping on them? And then we can tell the difference, right? So I think that that's the distinguishing, is when you start to get into the roles that are typically not asked to talk about their experience, that's a lot of times when the audience actually pays attention. So if I see someone that I'm just like, oh, wow, like that is just the paralegal is talking about, why they actually love coming to work every single day, not necessarily like about like, oh, we've changed this, it's related to their job specifically. But yeah, I think.
Yeah, then you're like, oh, they actually love their job.
Right.
I wonder what it must be really cool to work there.
Because they don't have to say anything.
Exactly.
That's the thing. Like, I do think that it shouldn't just be the front end staff or the front end employees, where it should be everybody on board is receiving the same thing. Like, that gives everybody the chance to look at these things from a different perspective. Even if you're on the back end, say you're working on the accounts, you're on the books. Maybe you're not front facing, but maybe you're gonna go back home and post a video. Or when you're going into work, you're already doing this. You're not adding work. You're like, yo, I'm gonna work. Yeah. And as you said, Tara, like talking about that experience.
The employees who work at Hershey's do that because they love working
they get chocolate,
there, and they're
right?
always just like, look at what we've got. And I think, Lego, those employees do it as well. Again, but you're going back to what Cassandra said. You have a culture of psychological safety. You have a place where people actually enjoy working there. And so it is really easy for them to point out why it's easy, why they love it so much. I think one of the things that we want to instill is those companies who are on the precipice of building out to get to a Hershey or to get to a Lego. How do you do that, right? Like, how do you create a culture of joyful work, right? Like, how are you doing that? And it can't be something that's a program that you're like, I want you to talk about what it's like to, go to our cafeteria. If your cafeteria is great, somebody's going to talk about it at work, right? You just want to be able to say, like, here's how we want you to talk about it in a way where it's just like, one, we're protecting people's, like, I don't know, privacy. I don't want you to show the chef if the chef doesn't want to be shown, or like just giving them structure to be able to say, like, talk about your joy, but we just want to make sure we have these key things in mind when we're talking about your joy, right?
I'm a millennial. I'm not on TikTok, but make it Instagrammable.
Yeah.
If you make a culture that is worth sharing, people will share it.
Yeah. I'm on TikTok. I'm older than you and I'm on TikTok, but I do it because it's a study in who's doing what and why and what works and what doesn't work. So I'm always fascinated in seeing like what works and what doesn't. And to be honest with you, most of the things on TikTok that do work are Instagrammable. The ones that don't work are not.
Yeah, that's how I watch TikTok. It eventually filters down to Instagram. So Tara, one of the things that I was thinking of, I heard, I don't know, a few months ago, I heard a trend of businesses, like small shops, small mom and pop shops, throwing up their like Gen Z girls, Gen Alpha girls on like the shop socials to attract customers to come in, which is gross if if you are not fully preparing your employees, especially those who are like teenage girls, to understand what it means to have your name and face associated with the location, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Are you seeing more of that? Where is this coming from?
I remember a few years ago when I was in house, when we started hiring for social media marketing, when that started to boom, because I oversaw hiring for corporate as well as e-commerce and media brands. And once we started hiring for social media marketing, I would say that first crop of candidates were either early influencers who had inserted themselves into the product, right? So at that point, it wasn't like, I'm great at talking about your product. It's me and the product together are going to get you some results, right? So they are not separating themselves from their skill set, which I found to be super fascinating, right? Most of the, when we ask for your clips or your samples, they were all inside of their own clips and samples. And I think that has never been pulled apart, where we're talking about, who are you? Are you the worker, or are you the influencer? And I don't know if companies are making that distinction. And so then you have this really complicated working relationship if you hire them on, where they sometimes think, this does not work without me, right? And I have seen, some social media marketing early career people kind of struggle with that distinction between, I actually have a job to do to talk about the product, but taking themselves out of it, they find it's a real challenge. And you don't always have a supervisor or a manager to understand that, because they're just like, what do you mean? You had great clips. I don't understand why this is very challenging for you, because it was organic. It was me. I'm the thing. It's so decentering yourself and centering the product sometimes is a big challenge. And I don't know if some of these smaller mom and pop shops even understand that, right? They're just trying to get eyeballs and get people in the door. But later on, as your company matures, it's definitely something you're going to have to figure out.
And so how about on the flip side? What about when they say no? When employees, show them this program and they're like, no, I'm good.
Dude, you got to do some work. You got to work on yourself first. If people are not, if people are not excited about what you've built, then you got to do some internal work, because trying to force people to get excited, that's just going to backfire spectacularly.
Yeah. I think you don't need a bunch of people either, right? Because, inherently there are going to be shy people who actually have no desire to be anywhere near anything that talks publicly about their experience. They just wanted to let you know, hey, I have a great time working here. I don't want to tell everybody, though. I just wanted to let you know that I'm having a great time working here. You have to, as the program administrator for whatever this is, your brand ambassadorship, you've got to make that distinction between the people who are genuinely excited, the people who are genuinely excited who actually want to talk about it. So, because I've had people say no, and it's like, not because I hate this company, it's just that I'm not comfortable being the voice of anything. I don't want the spotlight at all. And so even if you have, 3 people who are talking about it, you're at least allowing those 3 people to model the behavior of people who might not have been asked or didn't know it was possible. And then that can slowly grow. But you also have to have patience as an organization as well, because you're not going to go out of the gate with like your entire company just posting on social media about how great you are. It's just not going to happen. That's unrealistic.
That is exactly where I see most employee advocacy programs fall apart. I mean, they force it instead of creating conditions where people genuinely want to share. And before you can even get that team buy-in, you need to know if your brand positioning gives employees something worth sharing. It's something that I've been working on relieving. And it's why I built a brand health check that diagnoses exactly where those gaps are, plus immediate actionables, which you can grab from the show notes. Now, let's talk about smart hiring and finding people who naturally want to advocate. So I remember, similar to your story before, Cassandra, where it's like a girl that's joined a drink brand and she's showing live the bet with her boss, like, hey, if I can get to X number of followers, specifically only on posts around your product, you'll give like a raise or you'll increase my salary, etc. And every single post, it's like her destroying in different ways the cans of soft drinks. So what are your thoughts in terms of the hiring and training?
I mean, did that work? Were people loving
hit,
it?
She hit 1 million. She hit 1 million. And yeah, even she got like a tank.
That seems to work then.
So it got to a point where, like, you know, she got some budget. Like, she convinced him, like, hey, this is on her post. Like, hey, can I convince my boss to get like a budget to get a tank? And he gave her the budget to run over the cans with a tank. So I think it is very much also in terms of how you're approaching your hiring, the kinds of people and the creativity, the mindset, etc.
Think less about hiring the ambassadors and more thinking about creating a community of practice to enable ambassadors and to cultivate that curiosity and that creativity that, I mean, running over a Coke can with a tank sounds awesome. I'm sure. I'm sure that there's some really great ideas that can come from places that you wouldn't expect. Like Tara said, like it doesn't have to be the marketing leader coming up with these ideas. It could come from NEA.
I 100% agree. Listen, in this market, specifically in the US right now, we have the highest rate of unemployment right now. Companies are really afraid to hire people, consultants. They are not focusing on whether or not they're going to hire somebody who is going to be a really great brand ambassador for them right now. You know, they're looking for somebody who's going to actually be able to do the job that they've listed, hopefully in the job description, really well. It's a bonus if you are somebody who then has that creativity, who can do that. But right now, I think it's really important for people to figure out, what do you need to get to your business goals quarter over quarter. And ideally, it's great. Like, hey, they also are really great to talk about this thing. But I don't think that companies right now have the budget to hire somebody specifically to kind of do that kind of ambassadorship. And the organic ambassadorship, again, doesn't come from the people who are in marketing or in creative or to talk about. That's all product stuff, and that's great. And sometimes you're hiring an agency to help you talk about that. What I think we're talking about is corporate culture. And I think what we're talking about is, like, for me, it's talent branding. It's how do I get more people interested in working here? It's not about the product itself. It's literally about why it's so great to work here. And I'm not talking about for the next couple of weeks. I'm talking about 1 year, 2 year, 3 year plans. How are we, you know, without paying for best companies to work for, actually becoming the best company to work for? So my perspective is always going to be talent branding, because I'm like, how do we talk about how awesome this team is, right? Product has a budget, you know, like whatever we're selling, they already got a budget to talk about that stuff. We don't have any budget to talk about our talent branding. That is all organic. That is literally us just being like, hi, you know, Cassandra's great. She's a great hiring manager. You should want to join her team, right? Like, how am I doing that? When she has openings, you know, in her role, but like in the event that she does have an opening in her team in the next year and a half, I want somebody to be like, oh my gosh, I heard how great Cassandra was. She did this panel, right, to talk about early careers. I heard one of her team members was a get ready with me heading to a team meeting and heard how awesome Cassandra was as a leader. Like, that's the kind of stuff I'm more interested in. That product stuff, they've got money. I'm not worried about that.
I am, and I appreciate you calling out my genius. Actually, Tara, you just said some genius right there. So you said, I want people to understand how great it is. I want people to understand how great it is to work here, not just for the next few weeks, but in 1 to 2 years. Yeah. And Amy Sperling, the CEO of Compt, posted probably the best example of this just yesterday. She posted about how people at Compt keep having babies. Lots of Compt babies coming. So much so that some Compt parents are having their second babies. And she was talking about, she goes, I didn't, set up to build a company for working parents. It just happened that way, that I built a company that enabled working parents to live their lives and want to stay there because they recognize that the culture was so good. That is employer branding.
Yeah, I think Spotify also was one of the early companies who had It was not unlimited PTO because that was fine, but it was they started engaging their employees. Where are you going when you have your unlimited PTO? And then our social media was flooded with people who were in Ireland and they're in Spain and this is what it's like to work here. And you're going, excuse me, what? First of all, you have the time to do it. You are not working. And it looks like you can afford to go to the places that some of us are
Yeah.
just like, no, I have a staycation. Like they're actually, you know what I mean? So it sends all of these different messages. That's the kind of stuff that gets me excited. Right now,
Hmm.
obviously, I think that's saturated. But when they first started doing it early on, people were like, I want to work there. How can I work there?
Yeah. Make it Instagrammable. Make an experience that is worth
So,
sharing.
say for example, if you have people that are maybe less creative on board, it might be worthwhile to bring everybody in, like, to have a group gathering or whatever group gathering that you have for the business, not just making like one for every single issue, because that's again a waste of time. But bring them in, be like, hey, so what are ways in which that we can promote this? What are different ways that we can be evangelists?
Part of the community of practice that I was talking about earlier was it's sharing the wins. It's actually demonstrating how it works when it works well. So
Yeah.
using internal examples to upskill their peers. If there's an employee ambassador group showing this worked really well. Like great job, Tara. She talked about the time when someone was a super asshole to her at the office. And it went viral. Woo! And because it went viral, it got our company an extra 2,000 followers on X platform. Then you dissect. Why did this experience resonate with our audience? Why did this content really do well? And can you think about in your lives, Beatrice, Cassandra, what experience in your life could you also share that might resonate with our audience like that as well?
And that's the kind of content, because I also did a little bit internal comms before, but I was advising on what our company-wide meetings would look like. What Cassandra just said, I would be like, can I get on the agenda? Because I want us to spend 5 to 7 minutes talking about exactly what Cassandra said. We are going to break down for you how her post then resulted in us doing a $1 million brand partnership deal because XYZ happened. And we're going to show you, we're going to reverse engineer, showing people how the business works beyond what their job is something you can also get people excited about in a company-wide meeting, right? It doesn't have to all be EBITDA updates and whatever. It can also just be like, here is a real life example of how our business just got impacted by something that was super creative. And then you're showing people like, you too can do something like this. Like, it doesn't have to be this
Show them what's
exact thing,
possible.
but we're showing you how this worked out, like how we went from A to B to C, and now we have extra income at the end of the quarter because of this thing.
Not everyone has that creative view of the world, but if you show them what's possible, that does tend to get the juices flowing.
Chat thing going with like examples and everything.
Oh, there's a Slack group. Have a Slack group set up so you can share the things that worked.
Do case studies in your company meetings. Like, just it's so easy. It's
Who
really
should be
easy.
heading this?
I think it's a collaboration. I always think it's a collaboration between internal comms, because internal comms usually is the one that drives a lot of the internal communication, right? But you're partnering with your brand partnerships director, who's the one who talked about how this all started. You're talking with your talent team or your people team, because they're the ones who intimately should know your people population and everything that goes with that employee journey. You're talking with other business leaders, but it's a collaborative process. As long as you have it structured where you're like, we've got our case study, we've got our Slack channel. I'm expecting content from you leaders whenever something like this pops up, so we can show our employees what is possible. You've got somebody who's documenting what the program looks like. The program is widely accessible to everyone on the intranet. You have people talking about it in your weekly newsletters. Like, it's just sharing, being transparent about the information and what is possible, like Cassandra said.
not every organization
There you
has
go.
a chief people officer and a chief comms
Exactly.
officer
Yeah.
and a chief marketing officer and an employer brand leader.
Yeah.
It could just be one person who's like managing all of the people stuff, and this is just another thing you're throwing at them to manage too.
Yeah.
But
Been
Tara, I
there.
will fight you. I will fight you for it from an internal comms perspective. I
Yeah.
do think that internal comms is really well suited to manage this type of program, either internal comms or if you have an employer brand team.
Oh, I said
They're
that. That's
also
who I think
fantastic.
is the
Yeah.
driver of it. But you're partnering with all of these other people to get the stories that you need to be able to do that. Like, but some
Exactly.
places don't
Yeah.
have an internal comms person, right?
Right.
And like you said, so a lot of times, again, that's been your people person, but I
Yeah.
think this goes back to business leaders not understanding the value of certain jobs, i.e., internal comms. You can transform your business by having a really strong internal comms person. It doesn't have to be a senior person at all. But if you're a TA leader, you should be able to hire an internal comms manager at the very least to help you, because these are special skill sets, right? Like I have no marketing background at all. Like I don't know anything. And I'm like, I partnered with our marketing team to get a talent marketing plan together. I'm like, this is what I want to communicate. What's the best way to do this? They're the ones who have ideas, but you can go across the aisles. You don't have to just stay just because I'm a TA leader, I'm not going to talk to our marketing team because they only do external marketing. No, you can apply some of those skill sets internally. Like share what your goals are and work with other people that are already there if you can. Like that's possible.
Let's talk about the risks. What happens when an employee advocate or evangelist goes rogue and says something, or perhaps they say something off brand? Where can it and has it gone wrong? And how do you protect the company and employees?
I mean, we see people getting fired for social media posts that are not having to do with the company. I mean, I did a Google search this morning, and I could not find the end of the Google search where people stopped talking about people getting fired for posting about Charlie Kirk's assassination.
Mm-hmm.
So there are examples abound, but the one that sticks out in my mind that's a non-political assassination related post is the OBGYN staff in California
Oh.
earlier this month who were posting about the gifts from their patients left behind on exam tables. They were all fired, and as they should be. I think when I take a look at the risks,
Yeah.
are you harming someone?
Yeah.
Are you harming your customer or your patients? Are you harming the brand? Are you bad mouthing the brand? That's a real risk.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say something and it wasn't quite right? You used the wrong word when we don't use the word ecosystem. We use the word platform, like whatever. Okay. So just, do some reskilling, give that person,
Yeah.
hey, by the way, we don't use these words because of XYZ legal, tax, finance reasons, whatever it may be, but go on with your merry way. We love what you've been doing. If it's not harming people, customers, the brand, it can be fixed with a simple redirection.
That goes back to me saying document, right? Document, give people the brief. What does the brief look like, right? If you want to talk about our company in a really authentic way, we've just got some guidelines for you. One of the things though, that's also is like, how collaborative are you actually being? Because sometimes, for me, I would be like, can you show me your social post before you post it? Because I just want to make sure, to Cassandra's point, like we're not mentioning anything we're supposed, that legal's going to get mad at me about, or like, we're not revealing somebody's name or whatever. Because I do have to pay attention to those things, especially since I work for a public company, right? So I would see the social posts before they posted them. I mean, I would, and then they could tag the company, and I'd be like, great. Or are you saying like, as a ambassador, the company needs to be added as a collaborator. So you can make sure, like, you can't, you do have to be mindful of, other people's creativity, because sometimes there is going to be a risk, but you don't want people to feel like you're micromanaging them. But you have to also set them up for success So you're talking about what a successful post really kind of looks like for you. And however you get there, a successful post gives, future candidates an idea of what it's like to, interview with us, or future candidates get an idea of what like my first day is going to look like. How am I getting my stuff if I'm remote? What does the swag look like? What do offsites look like? Retreats, team meeting. Give them some insight. That's what successful posting looks like for me. And we have that constant conversation. But if you just like give it to somebody, I mean, of course, they're just going to reinterpret what you're saying if you have no guidelines or parameters.
It's an interesting one. I mean, okay, it's obviously one of the simple answers is having a clear list of like, these are the things or these are the areas that we shouldn't post about. But, there can only be a limit of how much we can think of. Maybe someone else will think of something that goes outside of those parameters and posts it. And you're like, well, that wasn't in the don't post list, but it's a bad idea.
I don't know if I'd recommend a don't post list. I think I'd recommend
exactly
a list of, well, obviously going back to, this is our mission, these are our values, these posts should align to these values. But if you're curious about how you regiment what posts look like or feel like, you can tell people this is what we want our brand, this is how our brand makes people feel. So we want to post that inspire or educate or engage and we want to make people laugh. So you should make people laugh with your posts in this way that aligns with our values.
Right.
Well, that is really good. Okay, so on the flip side, the rewards, how can companies measure whether their employee advocacy is actually driving business results in your perspectives?
And you gotta track the data. You can embed trackers that go back to, or how did you find us? Who sent you here? Watching when people post, do followership or viewership go up? Exactly.
Yeah, it's all your metrics. When I hired a contract social media person for our talent branding, part of her deliverables was, what do our metrics look like? I need some data so I could present, so I can continue having this program. I always have to advocate for my spend, right? I don't have unlimited budget, specifically when it comes to talent branding, because, they already think that that's supposed to be organic as it is anyway. So every piece of dollar that I'm fighting for has to have some kind of ROI. But I'm also realistic. I'm not trying to, go viral within 2 weeks. That's not my goal. I just have to understand that I'm doing a steady build, right? And matching my spend to that steady build and that steady growth, and making sure that we are on a pathway towards brand recognition and as authentic as possible. But yeah, I think your metrics are always really critical. And also just hearing what other people say, like, share it with, one of your friends. What do you think about this post about our company? Solicit all of the people that are outside of your company and see what they actually think about it. If your real friends will tell you, girl, that post is not great. And you'll be like, okay, great. Or from this post, can you tell, the things that Cassandra listed, right?
So say, for example, if there's maybe only 10 employees, right? Like, everybody's got a big workload. To ensure that we're still, tracking without having to spend a lot of time, is it like the combination of that Slack channel and putting up everything that they've shared and sharing their results? Or is it like the use of, say, for example, like a hashtag or something like that, or a code word, like, hey, so, this is the company, and say, for example, you have a tracker for every time your company is mentioned, and that gets added into that.
I would deploy the same types of tactics that marketing teams use to track where they're generating leads. Codes, hashtags, even Tara's recommendation of posting as a collaborator, and then you can track the metrics of just the posts that have collaborators, where there's click-through links to make sales or lead gen. I would use those same tactics. I want to go back to, like, how do we know that this is working? And it's not just thinking about your employee ambassadors, when we're thinking about on the talent side and the brand reputation side, what are people posting in anonymous forums? Are
Yep.
you tracking the anonymous forums, and are you watching the sentiment decline or incline? Are they posting on Blind that they absolutely hate their vice president named by name, organization named by name, or are they posting like, hey y'all, this is actually pretty cool. I enjoyed that we did this thing last time. What do your Glassdoor reviews look like? Are they getting better or are they getting worse? And not because you're like forcing people to post good reviews,
Right.
just organically.
I mean, I have a great story about this. 2020, Black Lives Matter. Everyone's posting their black boxes. We had a brand at our company. I won't name which brand it is, but it was a well-known wellness brand for, millennial women that wasn't known for being very diverse. And they posted against my recommendation. They posted a black box and they got hammered in the comments, hammered by people of all different backgrounds who were like, you have never been about diversity. You have never been about, your brand absolutely was not ever inclusive. And the good part of this story, though, is that they took some time, they reflected, they repositioned themselves. They took a step back. They got some of those people who were in the comments who were wellness influencers who were not homogenous, and hosted a talk with just them talking about their experiences in the wellness industry as people of diverse backgrounds. And it did turn things around, because before that, they had a horrible reputation about being exclusive. That's the thing that you have to also remember, right? Is when you have this inauthentic brand image that you've only curated because your team or your company is homogenous and you're not thinking about other voices and their interaction with the authenticity of your brand, and they are having a different experience, you can't put that genie back in the bottle. So you're going to have to figure out how to be prepared for that conversation that you're introducing on social media when you're presenting your brand, because you can't just turn the comments off, right? We see what happens when people turn comments off, where it's already automatically a red flag. Oh, so you don't want to have the conversation, right? So you got to be very careful. Are you ready for this? So when you're talking about a company of 11 people, already I was like, are they ready for what you're talking about? Because maybe you should just kind of focus on making sure the company grows a little bit more before we start talking about talent branding or company branding, unless it's part of your mission and your core values, and or it's part of your business, right? Like that's product and marketing specific. But if we are talking about the part where we're talking about corporate branding, corporate brand ambassadors, that's when you have to decide, are you ready? Is your company mature enough? Have you reached some goals where you actually know what your mission or your core values are all about? Because if you're not ready, it's going to come out in social media. And I don't know if you have the manpower or the resources to be able to, redirect like that company did that we used to have under us.
Yeah, you cannot stick your head in the sand and ignore or pretend like your shitty brand reputation doesn't exist. You can't. You have to face that head on. And if what you're looking at is an ugly baby, you got to call the baby ugly and then do some work.
Yep. Especially if you didn't know your baby was ugly and other people told you your baby was ugly and you were like,
don't kill the messenger.
Right.
Just take a second look at the baby. The baby's ugly.
You should have asked us first before you start posting your ugly baby.
God. I want to push back on what you said there, Tara, around say, for example, if there's only 11 employees, I still recommend small, medium-sized businesses. Obviously, in the first few years, like your first 2, 3, 4, etc. years, you want to be focused on growing, but having your team naturally ingrained. And I think there's a benefit of having that small number of employees where you're pretty much in the same room, or you're not going to get as lost in that conversation. You're like, hey guys, what do you think about this idea? And you can naturally bring that evangelism and it might even be stronger because people are just so much more involved in the business and the different parts of the business.
Here's what I worry about that, right? Because if you go viral as a company of 11 people, and from a talent branding perspective specifically, are you able to handle the amount of resumes you're about to get because people want to work for you? What are you going to do with that talent lead gen opportunity, right? Because if you don't have an applicant tracking system or CRM, that's all wasted. You're just, somebody's inbox is getting bombarded. So again, it goes back to what are you trying to actually accomplish as a company size of 11 people? What does your head count look like? Are you 11 Q1, but you then want to be 40 by Q4? Okay, that makes sense because we're reverse engineering a plan to say, if we start building out this campaign and it goes really well, we've got to hire 30 people. We have a plan to capture that talent that's going to be attracted by this. But if you're just saying, we have a great culture, let's all 11 of us talk about how great it is, and you're not prepared for the onslaught of what happens after that, what will you do then? Because your branding is going to take a hit, and they're going to be like, I reached out to you and you never responded when you had that one internship and you got 1,000 resumes overnight. What did you do about it? Nothing, right? Because you were like, how am I going to go through 1,000 resumes? I wasn't prepared for this.
I think so. All right, I'm kind of on Tara's side with this one, but I would say if you are just in like startup phase, you've got like a team of 10 working in a room, sweating it out together every day. Maybe just focus on your founder or your co-founders as the brand reps and building them up as executive thought leaders in their space as like part of your selling machine, and maybe loop in your like lead salesperson or your, if you've already brought in someone to think about marketing, those should be the only two people who are focused on
thought leadership,
like building up a brand and thought leadership. Because what we're talking about, Tara's right. We're talking about corporate brand ambassadors. When you've got a full team, you're growing, you've scaled, you got more than 10.
Like I'm
right.
I'm focused not here. Like I'm not focused on corporate, but also not startups. So I know a lot of businesses who they've been in business for a decade, and they've got maybe 11 employees, 20 employees, something like that, right? And the idea that I'm seeing employees coming into being brand evangelists is not necessarily, yes, this is a great workplace, but also the things that we do, the services that we have, the experience of the actual brand.
But what we're talking about is you tend to have that tends to be a budget that's already decided upon. If you've got a business development person, we're saying we have a budget for our product, our service, etc. If we're relying on some of our employees to build into that organic sort of marketing piece of it, my focus is talent also because that's where we don't have a budget, but that's also where you can do such wonders, and it's undervalued and it's underrated. But a lot of small companies, whether they're startups or they're not, leverage employees to talk about their brand because you're scrappy mode. You're like, this is so great. We have that, what Netflix talks about is, if you get the moment that you need to have a microphone for your company-wide meetings is the moment that you need to start shifting how you operate as a company. 10, 11 people, everyone is expected to dip in and push the product itself because we are a scrappy, small company. On the flip side, if we're talking about talent branding, though, I think that's a very different thing because it's never tapped into. It's never considered a business strategy.
So I'm still going to push back because I'm not necessarily focused on the talent side, right? Like, or the product. So say, for example, it's the experience, the association in mind. So the more words or the more different platforms that mention the brand. And this is, again, like we're not forcing people to talk about the brand or, the experience of working with that company. To me, both will overlap. So say, for example, if people are talking about they're having a great day or they're coming into work and they're it's super fun, their holidays, etc., it's not only going to have an effect on the talent, but it's also going to have effect on the brand and that association to the brand. And so there'll be the increase of sales. And that'll balance out like, hey, we were increasing sales and we're also increasing like employees. So that's the end goal there of like, we've got brand evangelists who are naturally, talking about their experience, talking about like the different parts of the business, the service, etc.
Yeah.
I think in that case, I think going back to what Tara said, having guidelines, social media guidelines, not even brand ambassador guidelines, just basic social media guidelines that everyone is required to read, understand, and agree to will go a long way. If you're not looking for, if you don't need to run a whole, you don't need to run a whole program to make sure that everyone understands what the rules are for social media and at least has a baseline understanding of what the channels are. Like, follow us on the employer channel, follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on this TikTok channel. That's a good starting point.
But that's also still somebody's job. In a company of 10 or 11 people, you've got a marketing person, right? And then that means that marketing person is then leveraging your talent. And for me, I feel like a smaller company, the expectation is that we're all brand evangelists because we're small, we're scrappy, we're talking about our brand, we think it's great. At which point, though, do you then say, okay, this is morphed away from brand evangelist, small, scrappy company to we're 150 people now. What is our why, right? Why are we doing this? What is our, what programs do we have where it's talent? It's the buckets that Cassandra was talking about before. Are we talking about our products? Are we talking about our talent, our culture, our thought leadership? Those are all very different buckets, right? And at some point, you're going to have to make a distinction and it can't all be morphed together. So I think it's really important for that person who, company of 11, head of marketing, to start going, yeah, okay, probably by the time we hit 25 people, we're going to have a different discussion about what our social media plan is going to be. And are we siphoning them off so that employee number 35 is not expected to be a brand evangelist. Like that's, not going to be, your accounts payable clerk is going to be like, I don't want to do that. Right. If that's employee number 35, they're like, no, I don't want to do that. What conversation are you having then? So I think it's helpful to kind of put a plan together. And that's why I say like 10, 11 people, we're all excited to work here. We think this is great. That enthusiasm has to translate into a business strategy at some point.
Absolutely. So, okay, what would you guys say to a business owner who's listening today? They've had their business, say, for example, they've had it for like a decade or so. And what's something that they can do today in their business to promote brand evangelism?
If you're a business owner, I'm going to recommend that you start with yourself.
Okay, so what should they do?
You got to be visible. All right, so here's the thing. I think that leaders, and congratulations on owning your business for 10 years. I'm impressed as someone who is trying to birth a business right now. Yikes. I think that you start with yourself. You start with yourself as the example, internally and externally. And what I mean by that is I want you to build the muscle and demonstrate what it looks like to be a vocal ambassador, a vocal supporter, internally and externally. I want you posting in the all team Slack channel at least once a week, twice a week. Share bits of yourself. What did you do over the weekend? Share a photo. What customers were you meeting with? What insights did you get from them? Are you jazzed about this customer or not? What's going on? What are you thinking for Q2 or for Q1 coming up? What are we thinking about with the holiday party? Are you asking the team what the holiday party or holiday time off is going to look like? Post internally regularly to demonstrate what it looks like to be a vocal supporter of the team and the business. Similarly, I want you posting externally on whatever channels you really like. I like LinkedIn because I'm a basic cringy bitch, but post regularly.
Hey.
I want you posting 2 to 3 times a week about the business, about what's going on, about your personal life. Demonstrate that you are able to connect your personal beliefs and personality and passions and values and enthusiasm with the business structure and the business objectives. You be an example and other people will follow.
Model the behavior. The only part I'll push back on, one, she's not a cringy bitch, but two, LinkedIn would not be the one that I would as a leader, because LinkedIn is starting to become something else. But if you want to figure out where your audience is from an external standpoint and go there. Because I think a lot of times these leaders hire somebody to do the job that they actually themselves do not do when it comes to being brand ambassadors. I will let so-and-so do this. I will sit back and become, sit on their throne or their CEO seat or whatever.
Can't you just post that for me? No.
Exactly.
No, I cannot post that for you.
Exactly. And they get distracted by the shiniest thing, AI, product, whatever. But I would also say, get you somebody who is an expert, hire you a Cassandra, because then you're not only posting what's only in your lived experience and you think is very important. Get someone who has the skill set to help you understand what actually is important from your business standpoint, because then we can reduce the amount of business leaders posting about things that seem out of touch. Sometimes you're out of touch and that's okay. Nobody's going to, you're not going to get arrested for being out of touch unless, of course, you're at a Coldplay concert and, you're doing all these other kinds of things and, whatever. But nonetheless, what I'm saying to you is solicit expertise in order to start building what that thought leadership looks like. And that's really important.
I got you. Well, Cassandra, you're definitely not basic, because I'm also, LinkedIn's my place as well. There is one question that I ask everybody that comes on board, and that is, what is one social norm that you want to push back on and teach others about? And it doesn't have to be about what we spent this episode talking about.
Oh, what's irking me right now is, again, that selective sort of thought leadership and voices. We have, in the States, we have over 300,000 Black women who've been pushed out of the workforce. And I don't see a lot of business leaders or HR people talking about it at all. And that's a workplace issue. So we're very selective in our workplace advocacy, which disheartens me. But I also think that at some point we're going to have a reckoning, because those people who are out of work, or those people who are paying attention to what these leaders are saying, are paying attention to the silence as well. Everybody was an ally in 2020. And now all of a sudden the allyship has shifted and morphed. And I don't think you also have to do a press release on things that you're doing. But if you're not helping people who are having the worst experience in the workplace right now, and you call yourself an HR leader or a people leader or a business leader, and there's nothing you're doing about it, the memory is long, is all I'm saying. And that irks me. And I think that that's one of the things I'm thinking about tremendously right now.
The pile on that we put on women, just piling more on, they keep piling more on us. Now women have so much to feel guilty about and to feel bad about. Now you're not allowed to have a horrendous pregnancy and get any sort of relief, because you have to be worried about causing irreparable damage to your children, which is just bananas. But of course, if you're pregnant and if you've experienced pregnancy loss like I have, any sort of risk, you're just averse to it. So I am sick and tired of people telling women to buck up and deal with it, and making us feel guilty and bad about existing.
Oh my God. Hex, yeah. Those are some hella deep ones. Thank you so much, both of you. That was bad as heck. We've covered so much ground. And to you, my badass listener, thanks for tuning in to the Art of Positioning podcast. If you love this episode, please share and review. You can reach out to Tara and Cassandra and catch that brand health check from the episode description. Now, let's go get badass.
No more excuses. No more branding band-aids.
They call me crazy because I'm facing all my giants.
I'm the only weirdo that doesn't actually put their whole name in there. But I suppose it's on the back end, right? Like, not really seeing it. We're so used to putting on Zoom like our full name and the business and like trying to put all the details in there somehow.
Beatrice Badass. Now I'm rethinking how I identified myself in my line. Can I be badass too? Jesus.
Yeah.
All badass.
Maybe. I mean, like, you know, instead of good connect, which, I mean, it's actually also a very good surname for networking and everything, because it's like you're networking to have good connections, and my surname is Good Connect.
But it's the folks who don't ask, and they're like, Babylon? Blah, 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 blah.
Or they just Cassandra Bab. So
How did we get there? Yeah, Babs. They'll all of a sudden they'll start calling me Babs, and I'm like, who said I was a bunny?
Wait, where did Babs come into like being a bunny?
I have a Yeti that I haven't gotten out, so I'm just using my AirPods.
Like, because it's going to keep on rubbing, because that's this. Oh, that sounds incredibly wrong, but here we are. No context. It's just going to keep rubbing against.
The art of positioning. Let's freaking go.